Yes, sir.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you for asking.
Okay.
Yes, we're okay? Yes. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. It is the Laredo College Ad hoc Committee meeting for the athletic program. And I will take attendance of these advice me or let me know if you are here. Jackie Levan Ramos present. Cynthia Mares. Present. Esteban Raquel.
Present.
Karina Elizondo. Dr. Veronica Martinez. Raquel Peña.
Present.
Linda Gomez. Javier Cano.
Present.
Armando Pérez.
Present.
Jaime Don Juan.
Present.
Prakash Manzikani.
Present.
Rosario Domínguez. Jesús Conrado Galaviz. Dr. Fred Solís.
Present.
Mr. Barrera. Mr. Bobby Cruz.
Present.
Mr. Richard Rosas.
Present.
Mr. Daniel Perez. Dr. Ricardo Solís. And we have in attendance also Mr. Vera. Present. And
Present.
Dominguez is here. We recognize Mr. Dominguez. That is attendance for today's meeting, and we'll wait for the others to join us. Also on Zoom, we also have Ms. Lupita Cepeda and also Mr. Jorge J.D. Delgado as observers for this particular meeting. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping that everybody is doing well. We did get quite a number of responses back from the membership forms. And I'm very happy to say that we were able to collect a lot of information. I also want to acknowledge Mr. Cesar Vela, Dr. Marisela Rodriguez, Dr. Ricardo Solís, and also Ms. Ramirez from the Institutional Effectiveness Division, who provided us with information about today's meeting. Dr. Ricardo Solís is joining us.
No, I think you're supposed to join there.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, all right, okay, you're right. And so I do want to take that opportunity. I do feel that last week's meeting was very productive. We had a lot of information that we were able to gather, but I do want to give you a warning. Today's meeting will have lots of information. You asked for data, so we're going to go over some of that data. We are going to go over some of the statistics that is in relation to the sports program. And I still want to make sure that everybody understands that this is a working committee. We're open for suggestions, for comments, and all within, if we stay within the respectability of each other. We want to acknowledge Dr. Veronica Martinez. She is present also on Zoom. Dr. Martinez, thank you.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
And so with that in mind, I want to also explain to you the three packets that you have on your desk. The first one is the Texas Public Higher Education Almanac. This can serve to help you even outside of this committee, because this provides you with statistical information about each college and university in the state of Texas and currently. So a lot of the information that you were able to compile from the membership form came from this almanac, plus also the websites that we went ahead and looked at during the course of the research. You also have with you a copy of the PowerPoint, because as we finish up the task for today, we will probably be having a little bit more homework. And I smiled at Mr. Ryan. But it's not a lot, it's just, it depends on how the meeting goes. And then you also have a packet that shows you the academic side of the sports program for the years 2016 through 2019. Okay, so we shall begin with today's meeting. Of course, I have already provided you with the resources that we are giving you. And, we asked Mr. Ennis to please, put up the PowerPoint, as we're going to be reviewing the Region 14 college membership platforms, not in detail, so that way you'll know. But I do want to, reiterate from last week's meeting, some of the options that we have. And so I want to explain that to you once again. It was a difficult week for me because I delved deep into the statistics, the numbers. You asked me to get you the information. I know I got a call from Ms. Maris, a text message, and she reminded me about the data that we did. And so we did, we got a lot of information, but some of it is happy news and some of it is some. So I want to share that with you, okay? So if we go to the slide where it says options to consider, we'll begin the part of the PowerPoint where we're going to explain a little bit about the options that we're considering.
I'm just going to modify
Yes,
something.
yes. I'd also like to acknowledge Ms. Kainani Soto as attending our meeting, and also I believe Dr. Maricela Rodriguez is also coming in, correct?
Yeah, we're getting another chair.
Okay, that's fine. And also I'd like to acknowledge Mr. Daniel Perez, who is also on Zoom.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, I'm currently driving back from Corpus. My son got operated. So sometimes if the signal goes out, it's probably because I'm driving from out of town.
I appreciate it, and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are good, ma'am.
Okay, so can we go to page 3? Options to consider. So we want to review the options to consider. We had discussed this last week, and we talked about the removal, the suspension, or the cancellation of all sports indefinitely for the future. Number 2, bring the entire sports program back the way it was, no changes, and leave as is with a $2.7 million budget. Number 3, consider suspending 1 year and discuss alternatives to reinstating the program fall of 2022 with continued discussions throughout the year. Number 4 is consider starting a brand new program from the beginning with a presented budget, select 1 to 2 sports, hire an athletic director or place an interim AD, recruit 70% locally and 30% out of town from the region, no out of the country students, select divisions in which to participate, suggest alternative sports, esports, intramural programs, provide summer camps and clinics for fundraising, and create a booster club or have the Alumni Association as a booster club. I've already shared with you that we have a copy of the almanac that has been provided for you. Please take that with you because that's really important. You can review it and look at some of the important information that we have from across the state, especially with other colleges and universities. I want to take you to this next page, which is called Texas Colleges. And we reviewed all of the Texas colleges that we have. We have about 50 Texas colleges. If those of you that worked on Bossier City, I believe the college, that is actually in Louisiana. So I am not going to include it as part of our discussions because they are actually part of the conference, the Region 14 conference to play, but they're not part of the state of Texas, and so you won't find them within the Texas Association of Community Colleges, okay? I just want to share with you on this, each state, the state is divided into 5 sections. You have the west side, the west colleges, the east colleges, and on West Texas, there are 9 colleges that represent the area of West Texas. 8 have sports that are participating in Region 5, and 1 college does not have sports. and that would probably be Amarillo College. So if anything, if you could circle Amarillo College on yours, and the reason I'm asking you that is because you can see, why is it that they don't have one? Okay, what is the purpose of them not having any sports? In the East Texas colleges, 8 colleges have sports, 1 college does not have sports, and that would be Texarkana College. Okay? These colleges do not participate in any other regions, Region 5 or Region 14 on the sports conferences, but they also have considered doing intramural sports within their own community. Following page, North colleges are comprised of, North Texas colleges are comprised of 9 colleges. 8 colleges have sports, 1 college has no sports, but it does have intramural sports, and all are under the Region 5 conference. And that would be Tarrant County College District. That is a pretty big college. It's in Dallas, and it covers a wide area. And so that particular college has intramural sports for their community. Following page, South. The South Texas colleges have 8 colleges, 3 colleges have sports, 5 colleges do not have sports, and they all participate under the Region 14. As you can see, Alamo Colleges in San Antonio does not participate in Region 14 or Region 5. Del Mar College does not have sports. South Texas College does not have sports. Southwest Texas Junior College does not have sports. And Texas Southmost College does not have sports. In our area, it is only Coastal Bend, Laredo, and Victoria. We go to the next page, Southeast Texas colleges, 9 colleges, 5 colleges have sports, 4 colleges do not have sports, all are under Region 14 conference. You'll see that the Lone Star College system does not have sports. Brazos Sports College does not have sports. Houston is a very big one, and the other one is College of Mainland. So those are the ones that do not have sports. Houston Community College has many different areas. And so, and if you notice, they don't have a prison, they have a chancellor. When you have a chancellor, you have different satellites, different areas that you cover, okay? So it is a very big college. Last page, the Texas colleges is Central. Central colleges has 7 colleges, 5 colleges have sports, 2 colleges do not have sports, 2 colleges are under Region 5, and 3 are under Region 14. And you would have Central Texas College and Austin Community College District. They do not have sports. Okay? We go on to the next page, and the reason I shared that with you, so that you can see the broader picture. 50 colleges, and those are the ones that have sports, and the other ones, what are they doing? Intramural, maybe they have other venues that they utilize their money for. But mostly, I wanted you to see how the state of Texas is broken down. This next page is, we compiled it from, we can go back, sir? We compiled it from the information that you gave us. From the graph, I went ahead and placed the 1 sport colleges. Alvin Community College, 6,000 students, baseball, softball. Galveston Community College, 2,306 students, baseball, softball. Lamar State College, 3,997, basketball, softball. Put a little note on Lamar State College because that does not belong to the Texas Association of Community Colleges, actually belongs to Lamar State University System, the Texas State University System. I stand corrected on myself. So that would not be fitting into the other pages. You won't see that one there. Lee College, 7,643, basketball and volleyball. San Jacinto College, 25,470 students, baseball, softball. San Jacinto College canceled the rest of their sports in 2018 and were left with only baseball and softball. Why do we call it a one-sport college? Because baseball offers the sport for the males, softball for the females. Remember Title IX, they have to have equal amounts for both genders, okay? 2 sport colleges, Angelina College, 5,000 students, baseball, basketball, soccer, softball. Kilgore College, 3,381, basketball, football, softball. Harris Junior College, 3,118, basketball, baseball, softball. Trinity Valley Community College, 15,625, baseball, basketball, football, softball. Victoria College, 8,200, basketball, cross-country, volleyball. Wharton College, 7,152, baseball, volleyball, rodeo. Yes, rodeo. 3 plus 4 colleges. Lynn College, 19,000 students plus, football, soccer, volleyball, basketball, golf, and cheer. Coastal Bend College, 4,108, baseball, basketball, soccer, esports. Navarro College, 7,139, baseball, basketball, football, volleyball, softball, esports. Panola College, 2,400, basketball, baseball, volleyball, rodeo. Tyler Junior College, 11,168 students, baseball, basketball, football, golf, soccer, softball, tennis. Notice the common sports that were available in all of the colleges represented Region 14. So I'm going to ask the question to Coach Don Juan. If you play in the tennis team, does it play with a Region 14 students or with a Region 5, or what area do you all play with?
Tennis is a little bit more unique in saying that the tennis program has had the opportunity to play the university level. We have played UT Austin, we have played Baylor, we have played A&M, and we play different smaller division ones, which are UTRGV, UTSA, Incarnate Word, St. Mary's, in order to get the playing and get ready for nationals at the end. The ultimate goal as for the tennis and myself has always been to strive to win a national championship, which I have. Well, the team has seven national championships on the men's side.
When we talk about soccer, does soccer follow the same format, playing only with Region 14 or with university level?
They are a little bit different. Soccer does play outside as well, but those would be called scrimmages, which in the tennis, it counts just as a regular match.
And what about soccer?
The same thing would be like in soccer, where those would be scrimmages. And scrimmages, just to let you know, scrimmages are games that just don't count. They're just for practice itself.
So the softball plays within the Region 14 because there's a lot of softball teams, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so does soccer.
Correct.
There's a minimal amount of soccer teams in the Region 14, but I see more softball than anything, and I see more baseball. I do see a lot of basketball, and there's a couple of them that do football. So, I mean, they're limited in football, but still, the ones that are seen the most are volleyball, softball, baseball, and a little bit of basketball is the next one, and then soccer, and then of course tennis.
Yes.
So, and the reason we share this with you, so that you could see the work that was being put in from all of the membership forms that were turned in. Those that were not turned in, we went ahead and inputted the information, so that way you could see and look at the comparison. Bossier Parish Community College is the one that I was telling you that is in Louisiana. Jacksonville College is a private college, and they're not part of the other colleges. Okay, so just so that you know. That's really important because when I looked at their website and if you look at the number of students that they have 1,942 students, Yet they have basketball, golf, soccer, tennis, cross country, track, and I believe dance and cheer. So we have a lot, but it is a private, community college. So it's not within the Texas Association of Community Colleges. Any questions on the, information about the 1 sport, 2 sport, 3 sports? Okay? We're good to go. So we go to the next page, and here's the nitty-gritty. This is the Laredo College Athletic Program budget for 2019-2020 from the information that was gathered from the finance department. The athletics program had a budget of $255,357.89. Tennis at $193,093.39. Volleyball, $160,490.82. Baseball, $141,161.42. And the sports complexes actually was $38,483. Soccer, $205,066.39. Softball, $219,317.99. For a total of $1.2 million that was actual, budgetary expenses for this, item. I want to make sure we spend a little bit of time on this one. And I want to explain to you the first section, which is athletics, tennis, volleyball, baseball, sports complex. That is coming from the general operating fund. So you have two venues or two areas where you get money from for the sports program. You have the general operating fund, and you also have the student activities fee. The student activities fee comes from the 2013 board meeting that approved the addition of soccer and softball. Okay, so in 2013, the board approved adding soccer and softball and getting the monies from the student activities fee. Okay, so this particular year, they utilized $424,384.38. Okay, the general operating fund used $788,504.35. A brief explanation for those of us that are not familiar with budgets. And the way that I saw it and the way that I studied it was, you have two areas, two sources. Those two sources are the ones that are maintaining that department. So if you go line by line item and you figure out each section, you're gonna find that athletics, tennis, volleyball, baseball, sports complex is coming from the general operating fund. When you look at soccer and softball, they're coming from the student activities fee. So where does the student activities fee come into? When you apply to come to school here, you do a tuition and fees. And if you say the tuition is really low, yes, it's really low. But when you look at the numbers that are added after the tuition, those are the extra fees that are added. The last year, we took away we suspended two fees. And Mr. Vega's here and Ms. Gomez is here, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. But we suspended for the year the parking and facilities fee. Right, you can also chime in. And we also suspended for the year the technology one. No, the distance learning. So those two fees were put on hold, and we did not receive any revenue from those fees. Okay, when the budget was presented at the end of the year, before this year started, at the end of 2020, the budget was presented at $61 million. Okay, when the budget was presented, we had already suspended athletics program for the year because of COVID. Okay, so we were left with, we could take off a little bit, bring it down, you cut some places, we ended up with $58 million. Okay, $58 million is your general operating fund that includes student activities fee, any other fees that come into play. Okay, and I'm trying to explain it as best as I can because this is how I wrap my head around it. You know, it's a lot of numbers and a lot of information. So if we go to the second page, I don't want you to strain your eyes, but this is line by line item of the information that I just put on the previous page, okay? And I got my information from the different columns. And I apologize if I might have placed it in a different direction and I put it, one right after the other, but I think it follows the left side, right side, and then the second page is left side, right side, okay? So in the last column was where I got my info for the fiscal year 2022, which is this coming year. The information that I gave you in the previous slide came from the second to the last column on the right-hand side. So there's two sections. The left-hand side shows you the athletic department and the tennis. And then it continues, that's why I say I apologize, because I think I put the second page is supposed to be on the next one. But it's also baseball, sports complex, soccer, softball, volleyball, and of course it's on the opposite side, so I do apologize. I had the phone ringing and people were coming into the library and I was like trying to put the numbers in and then kids were calling me, so I apologize. I didn't mean to do that. But so you're gonna see that if you put it on your paper, the first section on the left-hand side, put it at the very top, page 1. On the right-hand side, at the very top, you're gonna put page 3. On the second page, left-hand side, page 2. And on the right-hand side, page 4. I will send you the PowerPoint so that you can, zoom in and see the numbers. That's why I said it might be that we have a homework to do, okay? So that you can see the different numbers, okay? I'm gonna go to the next page because all of that is line by line item of what is spent for each department. So we're gonna go to the Laredo College Athletic Program projected budgets for fiscal year 2022. If we were gonna take the option where we're just gonna bring it back, forget about everything, forget what we have to think about or anything, this is what we would have to do. Athletics would come in at 456,840. If you look at 2019 and 2020, it was double that amount. Why is that? That was the question I asked. Because you're adding other individuals such as the athletic trainers that need to come into play because of COVID, and some of the other items from the COVID related that will only be paid for the first year through the CARES Act, but does not include any employees. Okay? Tennis is 260, 21. Sports complex, 51,337. From the general operating fund, you would need 768,198. And all the numbers are coming from your line by line items, okay? Baseball, which we don't have a coach right now, volleyball, which we don't have a coach right now, would be 242,132 to 29,569. You would need from the general operating fund 471,701. Soccer and softball would need 270,335, softball 279,462. You can put a little exclamation point or a little star at the very bottom. Soccer is men's soccer. Softball is women's softball. Tennis, on the other hand, is men's and women's. That way you can see the numbers, okay? From the student activities, we would need $549,797 if we were to keep this as is, for a total of $1.7 million. We are adding, because there are other things that you need to add, this is just numbers that deal with the athletic program. You still need other incidentals that are added to it. And that's why we talked about 2.7 million, okay? Remember that in 2013, the board decision to put soccer and softball were added to the program, and the student activity fee was increased to benefit those two sports. Any questions up to right now? Doing okay? It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. On the next page, you have,
Excuse me.
okay, somebody has a question, Mr. Perez?
Yes, Ms. Ramos, Danny Perez. What are the incidentals that you're talking about that are added to the budget, please?
Need to go back to Mr. Vera, because I know that we had, you had indicated it was 2.7 with the $800,000 of the other added items that needed to come into play. And I have a copy of that, but I didn't put it in there because I was only putting numbers about the athletic program. Mr. Vera?
So essentially, I guess, the question revolves around the additional items for COVID, right?
Yes, sir.
But, the breakdown for that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, based on information that we received, again, on the items that would be needed, to operate under, against the, safety, measures that are in place right now for COVID. It was identified that, we would need to have a budget set aside for, COVID testing. Also, right now, currently, we do have an A-stop team that handles, obviously, tracking of exposure and also making sure that the policy protocols are followed. So that would include, having, staff members for the athletic, programs. So we factored in that there will be 3 members, from A-stop, that will be working with athletics. And that cost would be, salaries and benefits would be around, 95,000. COVID testing, we are estimating about 200,000 based on the number of student athletes and the number of times that they would need to be tested. We included PPE, cleaning supplies. Again, about 300,000 for the operations. And then one of the things that we also need to take into account that, by reopening athletics, the A-shop personnel that are currently assigned, the coaches that are currently assigned to the A-shop team will go back to their respective positions. Therefore, we will need to replace those individuals. And so we also projected or budgeted for those expenditures. So again, out of the COVID-related items, that would be a total of 799,431. Now, we do have funding for the CARES Act funding to cover these expenditures. They would not be part of the operating budget per se. However, we do have a limitation because right now, COVID funds are only available in January of next year. So again, we would be able to cover expenditures for the fall semester. And hopefully, if we were to receive a low-cost extension by the Department of Education, we could cover the spring. But again, right now, the assumption being made is that it would just be for the fall semester.
Mr. Perez, so did I answer your question, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So on the next page, you're going to see the top left-hand corner. This is the tuition that you're recognizing.
I just have a question. Is it subject to change based on city and state requirements or COVID restrictions? As we all know, everything's changing. The city is about to update on COVID restrictions. It is going to be subject to change to, $1 million based on the regulations that will be implemented to cover for the coaches. Will this be subject to change? Is this amount going to be changing?
I know that, again, things have been changing and obviously the city, the county, the state, changes. However, we have to follow what the Trustee Coordinating Board. Would they provide, if they were to change protocols, of course that will change. But again, my understanding right now is that the coordinating board is dictating what protocols we have to put in place. And again, I don't know if that will be any more information on that.
That is That is correct. For the athletics program, we have to follow what NJCAA safety protocol was. So what you're seeing, or what Mr. Vela outlined, is based on the protocol that has been identified currently. Is it subject to change? Absolutely, but like Mr. Vela says, according to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, we still have to follow CDC guidelines.
And if I may add also, the numbers that were provided are based on all of the sports coming back. So when the numbers were added, it was because it was athletics, baseball, soccer, softball, tennis, volleyball, sports complex, and the athletic personnel fringe benefits, which is included actually in the athletic section and also in the different departments in the line by line items. And so that's where you see the fluctuation. You cannot say, that's the number, because at the end, it could change from one month to the other. On this next page, I did want to share with you, going, before that, thank you. On this page, which is the page where you have the tuition and fees, this is where the money was generated for the student activity fee, okay? So again, going back, and I repeat myself because there's gonna be a reason why I've been repeating myself. 2013, you added, the board added the softball and the soccer to this particular area. So this is what was generated in these years, 2017-18, 2018-2019, 2019-2020. I did ask Mr. Vela to provide us with the generated numbers for 2020 and 2021, because we did not allocate those monies for the softball and the soccer because it was suspended. But student life budget, it's 946,000. Athletics received in the last year that it was in operation, $424,384.38, for a total of 1,370,384. If you look at the very bottom of the screen, you will notice the credit hours. Non-dual means students that come to campus, they're traditional, non-traditional students, they take courses here. Dual are the kids that are taking courses at all of our high schools. Those kids, the district does not pay the activity fee or, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Craig, none of the other fees except tuition, correct? Or there is a base tuition.
The districts pay a reduced tuition to the units, and then certain fees that are applicable.
So theirs is much different. But activity fee is one of them that the school districts do not pay because, Mr. Cruz, you can chime in, you have your own activities. And the kids pay in the extracurricular activities, even if they're enrolled in dual. So that's why the district said, no, we won't pay for that activity. So you have the credit hours at the very bottom of 125,816 is what was earned in fall, spring, summer 1, and summer 2. So you in that particular year, they were able to recoup 1,346,556, but they needed 432,438 from the general operating fund. So you wonder, like, how does that work? Well, maybe less revenue came in, maybe, athletics received 424,384 because that's, I looked at the line by line item on the budget, and that's mostly where the money came from, actually. But it should have come from student activity, right? So we worked with only the 1.3 million so that we would go to the general operating fund. And if you go to the next page, please hold off on doing anything. I did the best I could.
I got a question here.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Roses.
Since those monies weren't spent last year on the sports program, it was budgeted, but obviously wasn't spent, where did those funds go?
At the very beginning of the meeting, the $61 million that we had. So in essence, since you were able, the sports program was not the only one that was set aside, it was also the daycare, program that we have in the South Campus. And so those individuals that were working, they were moved to another department for the time being. But the rest of the monies were actually the savings so that the budget could be reduced to 58 million. Because originally, if we would have stayed with everything, we would have been at 61 million. And so, to answer your question, that money is not available for 2021, 2022.
So what, it was used?
I would say it was at like, Mr. Vela, please. The chair recognizes Mr. Vela.
I'm sorry, the revenue that you're talking about is the, student activity fee. For this year, for 21, that revenue, like, Ms. Ramos mentioned, we had to make a reduction in our budget because we were expecting less revenue. So the revenue that we are talking about has not come in. There was actually a drop in revenue this year from the student activity. Typically, we budget about 1.7 million for student activities based on the semester credit hours that we are projecting. And so this year, to give you an update, as of February 28th, which includes the fall and the spring semester registration, the revenue for the student activity is 1.3 million. However, we are still pending to make the adjustment for the fall, for the spring semester, for those students that are dual students. Again, at this point last year, we were closer to 1.5 million, so we've lost about 200,000. So we've had to reduce our revenue, and in order to be able to balance the budget.
And I understand the redistribution. So coming to this year, obviously you were gonna make probably a decision of how to cover those expenses, because you actually grab money from sports to cover other expenses. That's
And I think if we really look at the numbers and we really look at where it is, if the program was initially placed under the student activities fee at the very, 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 very beginning, then right now, we would still be in the same place because the collection amount is still at this amount at 1.3. And then having to borrow from the, I won't say borrow, but having to get from the general operating fund. So at the end, if we don't have access to the general operating fund monies because there's been a reduction in revenue, then you are left with available funds for 21, 2022 of 400,000.
so, President Solis here probably had to put something together or whoever in charge of putting the budget together, finance and all that is pick out the sports that, maybe go that route. Because obviously it's just pretty simple math. I mean, you look at me, pretty simple math that it's gonna be the whole amount of sports, because that's what you gotta raise, 1.7. Obviously you got another million of the CARES Act that playing with COVID and stuff like that, which you mentioned with January, but it's pretty simple math, so, whatever administration is gonna put together to bring to the table or to present to the board, see what sports stay or eliminate, but at the end of the day, the math doesn't change.
Correct. And that's why I went ahead and placed some more information for you there. Based on the collective student activity revenue of 2019-2020, 125,816 credit hours were earned for $1.3 million. And the deduction of the student life budget at 946. Student life is the department that sponsors the student activities. You have to have that. That is part of it. So whatever was remaining was because that one was the amount that was added in the 2013. So they went ahead and were taking the money from here. To consider, and I put two little asterisks there. To consider an increase to the student activity fee, it has to go to the board for approval. Okay? If we were considering $5 increase per credit hour to $15 per credit hour, based on the numbers of 2019-2020, you would provide an additional $629,000 if the credit hours do not decrease from the non-dual students. Okay? At this point, we have $400,000 to work with. What do we do next? Please change it to the next page. And I added the academics, but I'm not going to go into it just yet because this is a little bit more broader topic. The academics is that packet that you just received that indicates the number of hours and the students. This is program by program, and this is for you to review. Hold on a second. This is for you to review because it indicates some of the features about each program. Like, for example, really important, how many of the students in the program has the TSI? TSI is a test that measures whether you're ready to take college classes. What was the overall GPA of the students in that they were looking at? How many students completed an award? How many students got a certificate, a degree and associates? That has a lot to do, okay? It also indicates what major they were in, how many terms they were enrolled, so that you can see, and what are the ages of the students that were playing. And one of the teams, I saw a 26-year-old. That's, he's another person, so. This is something.
The career plan.
Career fair, yes, career fair. It's to say something. Keep on going.
Sorry, just wanted to go back really quick to the $2.7 million projection, just before we absorb more information pertaining to athletics. So my question is, the COVID-related expenditures covered under the $1 million projection is solely for athletics, or these expenditures will be related to the entire college? That's just a quick question. Sorry, just before we enter into it.
Mr. Vela.
Or the number that we have on the packet is will get it.
So that is for you to see, because that way you could see how each program was developed throughout the years. What did we get? Because remember, we're focusing on the student also as well. Academic success is our #1 priority when it comes to having students be members of the community college in any place in the state of Texas. That is the first thing that we want for them to do. Leave here with an award. Not necessarily the number one sports player, I'm going to use, or they did well in kicking, but more that they have something that, like Dr. Solis mentioned last week, that they learned so that they could earn money afterwards. That was the primary purpose. This is an extra activity that they can get, that they can continue to participate, and the college fulfills that opportunity for them by providing this through them. But remember, the student activity fee is collected from every single student, regardless of whether they play athletics or not. So that's just something to think about. Mr. Rosas?
I guess another question would be, what was the ratio of, I guess, of players from local participation here in the sports that were playing, I guess, in 2019, 2020?
Well, in 2019, I'm gonna go back to Dr. I remember we had, Dr. Marisela.
Yes, if you look at the packet here, the first page identifies the GPA and residency by program. And so our internal research and planning did an analysis of the 3 fiscal years, because typically we have a student that is here for about 2 to 3 years. And so you'll see the number on the 3-year basis by baseball, so there was 56 players in that time frame. Soccer players 41, and so on and so forth. But the first column is the GPA and then the residency, to answer your question. So if you see in district, there was 54 students, in state, 90 students, out of state 4, and 59 international. So international exceeded the local numbers, and then in-state was the number one, and I guess in the athletics demographic of students, they were coming from in-state, but not from Laredo.
So if international was pretty high, correct, or in-state, kids coming to the school for the athletic programs, you would say that would be a higher cost than our local kids?
Yes. Because of the scholarships.
Well, I'm,
Yeah.
whoever's seeing that, the income, obviously, from out of state is more expensive or in-state.
In a line by line item, if I may interject with, to answer your question. In a line by line item, you'll see the number of scholarships that were also being, in other words, that's the other thing. On the line by line item, you have the scholarships. In other schools, the scholarships are not coming from the general operating fund. They're coming from the booster club, they're coming from the association, they're coming from the foundation. And in this case, we don't have that right now.
Okay, and that obviously that would affect the budget. If the demographics of kids coming in from in-state, that would affect the budget tremendously, what you're saying.
Well, the scholarship package is offered, I guess, based on the equipment, it could be, again, and correct me if I'm wrong, coach, but there are some local kids that may offer a scholarship to participate. But yes, in order to recruit, from out of state or international, you have to offer a strong scholarship package. But, the expense that would be incurred by having, not a local, an out of state or a student would be also the housing component. But,
Which is part of the budget.
it's part of the budget, but it's in a separate, line item.
But it's a cost.
It's a cost.
It's a cost.
Yes.
And from a local standpoint, it'll be a lot less cost.
You wouldn't have the housing, per se, because they would give locally here, probably with the parents, but again, the scholarship packages are available for both out of state and local students.
And if I may add something before I go to coach. When a student lives in the place that they go, when a student lives in the place that they're gonna go to school, like locally, they get less money financially because financial aid will give you more money if you go to another school outside of the place that you live. So for example, if you live in Laredo, but you wanna go play in UTSA or you wanna go to UTSA, UTSA is gonna do whatever it takes to recruit you and give you money to be able to attend and offset the price that you have. Now, if you come here, then they factor in the EFC, if I'm not mistaken, but that's the contribution that the parent gives. So they're giving the living costs, they're giving a place to live. So the student, if it's local student, would require or would take less money than a scholarship type. So you will be able to give more scholarships to more local kids. I'll go to coach, but I know you have something that you wanted to input for us.
Okay, so the recruitings, it's like a professional league. You know, it depends what type of team you wanna get. You know, I don't know football, so I know everybody's going to say football, but let's just say Tom Brady. If somebody wants Tom Brady, we're gonna pay him a lot of money, right? Doesn't matter where he's from. So I'm just throwing it out. But as internationals, an international does not cost more than a local kid. It just depends on the talent, that who is better. You know, who's bringing more, who can win more, where can we be with that player? And based on his evaluation of where that player is at, that athlete is at, then that's the type of scholarship that we offer. But on the internationals, I don't want to throw it out there too quick, but if need be, in order to salvage at least one of the programs, and I'm sure we all have to do the same, but on the tennis team, if we talk about the 70 and 30%, what if I was to do it on scholarship and I was to bring in 6 internationals or 8 internationals without a scholarship? Would that change? Keep in mind, when you bring an international, they're paying more for the tuition. Back when I was really successful in 2005, I'm just going to pick on 2005. 2005 team had 8 players. 2 players at that time had scholarships. 2 players. The other 6 were walk-ons. Okay. So can a tennis team survive without a scholarship? I don't know how you want to say this, but yes, it can.
If you have to choose between the survival of the program and the.
I'm just talking about
No,
scholarship.
but in terms of scholarships, because we have to really be serious about what we are addressing, and part of the line items include salaries for the individuals that are in the capacity of coaches, the fringe benefits also, which includes, insurance, everything else. There was also, even having a secretary of part-timers, and all of that is part of the equation, that sometimes if we look at it, we say, well, if you can salvage 2, I'll give this up, or I can modify that. Mr. Rosas?
Yes, and Coach, I understand about the player talent and all that, but it will cost you, because I get letters from not only this college, but from around the state, that when the international or out-of-state players come and play, looking for extra funds to cover costs, and it happens. And I agree with you 100%. It's very hard to say, hey, well, how are we going to recruit local? I understand that 100%, but to the nature of where we're at right now, what I said in the last meeting, we're at ground zero right now, and I think that it's been a curveball to our financial system here, which I believe the administration is gonna, have to put something together for the board to make a sound decision. And that's why I'm mentioning, whether it's an international player or an in-state or out-of-state player that wants to come over here, it's gonna have to probably boil down to being as creative as possible to get that. We have every program to succeed, we got Mr. Cruz here, and instead of some of you extend part of the ISD also, and maybe some of y'all are creative with the school districts here. I know it's a different deal, but the same as the high schools, that they always succeed in every program. So, but in the state that we're in right now, I believe that's gonna have to be a real hard focus to be as creative as possible. Whether, like what you just mentioned, the scholarship can do 1 or 2, get away from the scholarships, but keep a sound program. At the end of the day, whatever program will be chosen, I think every coach deserves an opportunity to build the best program as possible, and give them as many tools as the school can provide, but at the same time, be as creative as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Mr. Cruz?
Just a couple of quick questions. Just like tennis, for example. How many per year? How many players round out a tennis team? 8 and 8, 6 and 6 for men and women.
We're allowed to have 9 on scholarship. The most that I've had on the men's team would be 12. When the numbers start to go up, cost starts to go up. It's not just about scholarship. So if I have 12 athletes, I've got to supply them with uniforms also. So the less, for me, I can go with my magic number is 8. That's what I would like to have. When I know sometimes I'm not by the administration, but by other people, I'm criticized by having, a smaller amount. But when I have 6 to 8 players, I can get on a routine passenger van and go. When I have 12 players, then I have to find another driver. Makes my job harder. So, and the other thing is that when I have a smaller group, I have more attention to that smaller group and I can produce better.
Out of those, just go back 2 years, you have 9 kids, your magic number is 8 or 9. How many of those were local?
9 to me is not a magic number. It has to be even. When I have an odd number, it messes up practice.
8.
8.
How many were local?
I'm gonna say that it's gonna be 50% because usually what I don't do on the men's side, I have it on the women's side. So normally my women's side is more locals. It is a little bit harder to bring in out of state or international.
My next question is, just to go back, Ms. Ramos, and I know the public school system in college is very different. We don't charge our kids. There's no fee to participate at the district level for LISD or USD. We budget, we provide the programs, we look at them and, sometimes we say, I don't, Gali's here, son goes here. She plays soccer. Like I said last time, sometimes it costs us more to turn on the lights and send people to work the game than it is that we're actually going to make. But nonetheless, we are that educational institution. We do have to provide that program. We don't have an activity fee. I wish we did. A lot of our problems would be solved. But unfortunately, we don't. And for example, we've had a demand for middle school golf coming, and we have a demand for wrestling coming. We have not had wrestling, but I know it's coming. And I know that I'll have to somehow come up with, which is in essence what you're gonna have to do. If this board and the administration decide we're gonna go ahead and bring back athletics in some way, shape, or form, you're gonna have to come up with it from somewhere. Has the college given some consideration to, or have we ever gone with partial scholarships or just tuition, not books, or tuition books but not housing? Do we do offer that to athletes?
Tuition or tuition books and meals. It depends on the division that you serve. The division 1, I believe, says tuition.
It's okay, you can give a full scholarship, but even though you're in a Division 1 program like we are, it doesn't mean that you have to give up the scholarships. It's just, you don't have to. We're at a pretty good level as far as funding, but we're not at the best. We could be a little bit better, but right now what we were at sounds pretty good. But yeah, we can have, not everybody has to be not everyone is on a tuition scholarship. Everybody's in a different type of scholarship, and there are very few that are on. Well, no one is actually on a full scholarship. Full scholarship, it's kind of unheard of. When you say full scholarship for us, it just means that they have a little bit in that area.
Some type of aid.
Right. Let's pick on books. Books will cost you about $700 or $800. So if we check it off that we're giving the the athletes $300, then that part, that counts as a full on the 70 other part.
I'd like to recognize Ms. Maris before I go to.
Thank you, and I'm sorry, but I've been going back into this budget thing, and I know that we're trying to absorb all this data, all this statistical information, financial, and hopefully hear ourselves as we walk forward the path with bring some kind of resolution or recommendation to this committee. And so, and I know that we're steering through that. So I know we all have questions. To me, first and foremost, I thank you for the financial information, and we got the budgetary things, but if you look at those sheets that were presented to us with our budget, the LC budget, it can be daunting to those people that don't have any experience navigating through this format. So what, and I don't know if it's important to anyone, even though I'm a board member, I've always asked, when you have the line item that says salary professionals and you see $165,000, what does salary professional mean? To me, the breakdown, well, that's 3 coaches, 2 teachers, et cetera. And then you have salary professional part-time. What does that mean? Part-timer, we're hiring part-timers. As you go through that, so I can better grasp, okay, just the personnel side of it is eating up 83% of the needed, monies. And so are we okay with that? And so maybe I think to make our decisions, as we say, let's stay with 2 programs. Okay, let's go and see what we paid for in the past. We paid for 3 coaches, 2 assistant coaches, and then the trainer, and then 3 secretaries, and 2 clerks. What all goes into that. And so maybe that's another area that we could look into and start chopping away at and saying, well, if our recommendation is to keep X, Y program, and the budget had, 20 people in it, we recommended it be down around to 3 or 4. Will that be manageable enough to get the program off its, ground level and to bring it, hopefully in a year or 2 to where we left off, when we shut it off because of COVID. And so, like I said, you can look at these budgetary things, and yeah, it tells us, but to me, even scholarships, and it says travel for the students, $45,000, what does that mean? Well, it was explained to us in detail and say, well, when they go into the competitions, we don't have to pay for the hotel, we have to pay for the meals, or we have to hire the bus, that kind of a thing. I think it would be at least the most important items, to me, be broken down a little bit better so that I can get a better grasp of what direction I'm going to go in, making that informed decision and contribute to this group. And like I said, if it's broken down if it's possible or not for our next meeting, or if it be sent to us, and that to me in my mind is, oh, okay, so here you're putting salaries and professional for the 22 budget year, it's $165,000. Well, it's 3 coaches, and or the senior coach makes, 80,000, and then there's the 2 assistant coaches that make 40,000. That makes up the 165,000. I think. I don't know. Unless I'm the only one thinking that way, I can get a better grasp of what all goes into. Yeah, we talk about the scholarship, but that's not the only element. We talk about all these incidentals that we see here, and like the insurance and the membership and the telephone and contracted services. What does all that mean? The officials, and we can. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory, and we see for the benefits. But I think that some of these, like I know, what was it, 4 or 5 years ago? It was brought to the board. We need to buy a bus, to have our own bus. Why? Well, because we rent out, the buses, and then it gets expensive, and so, over these last year or 2, well, we may as well, have our own bus. Okay, how much is it going to cost us? $50,000, $60,000. Are we going to have the CDL drivers? Oh yes, we're going to get them. And then we didn't get the drivers. So what happened to the bus? I mean, those are taxpayer dollars. To me, it bothers me because my responsibility as a board member, it's a fiduciary responsibility because it's all our tax dollars. So I mean, okay, did we sell it? Are we renting it to the school? To recoup some of the money. And it was just once in a life, but it was for athletics. The pitch was made. We need a bus. It makes it easier and quicker, and we don't have to worry about renting, and if buses are not available, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, we said, fine. But, so, for the bus, what's happened to the bus? Sitting there gathering dust. So, you know, these are little things, but if they're going back to the budget, I'm sorry, I digress, that's what I thought, you know, a little bit about, more information, but if it's only these, we're working on getting it to.
And I acknowledge the fact that those things, and I'll come back to you. I acknowledge the fact that we put that information, that, like, there are certain people that look at things and they say, this is the way to go. When I was faced with the information, I said, I'm gonna do it this other way, but I'm gonna go this route. And the route that I did actually go through, which is in preparation for the next meeting, is we're gonna decide today on one thing, which is gonna be the next sheet, the next slide, but not yet, Mr. Iglesias, don't switch it over.
Okay,
Because the next slide is gonna tell us, we're at a crossroad, like we said last week. And we have a decision to make today. The decision is gonna be on the next slide, and once we make that decision as a group, as a committee, and I do wanna add that I am very appreciative of the fact that Mr. Rosas and Mr. Perez are online, and Mr. Cruz and Ms. Barrera has also participated in our committee meeting. Because the intent of the ad hoc committee is to not only say, within each other, we're making the decisions. I personally wanted our community members to know the trials and tribulations that we have to go through in order to bring back a program that we had suspended for last year for the reasons that we did. It's real easy to say, bring it back, but, and I'm guilty of that, because I can say, you bring it back, I don't care what you do, you just bring it back. But when you get down to the basics and the foundation of what the program entails, then you have a different perspective. I mean, at least I do, because I see the nitty gritty of it. I see the line items. I see what is being spent. Can we go back after the decision that we make in the next slide? Can we go back to each item, line item? Maybe so, like a checkbook. We can go back and say, I can do without that, I can bring that one down. I just wanted to share with you all, we have $400,000 to work with right here, right now. Okay, Mr. Cruz?
I totally understand what Midas is talking about in some aspects. I probably didn't hear myself because you talked about that slide. But there are certainly some things you can do. Y'all, and I think Richard and I, you know, we're very pro athletes. We're pro athletics. I think what it does for kids, not just high school kids, or just what it just does for students in general is the benefits far away the. But I completely agree with these plans. I kind of chuckled when you're talking about the bus because, you know, our coaching staff is coming at me asking that we need charter buses, we need, you know, for our own kids. And those things are $150,000. And what they don't factor in is who's going to drive it, and then who's going to maintain it. And when it breaks down, it's going to cost. And then so in essence, what you have is, at the end of the day, and I do the math and I think, you know what, we should just charter and pay. At $1,000 a pop, we're only traveling maybe 15 times a year. That's 15,000. By the time this bus, you add in the total cost of this bus, which is now sitting there, and it's going to break down because nobody's going to be paying. And now you're looking at doubling that cost of that bus, which should have gotten in the first place. I think, I'm not speaking for LC, but for us, no way we're around the big charters. We're going to rent out vehicles. We're going to rent out buses. That's economically feasible. Getting ahead of this, I've known about the trials and tribulations of LC. I live with an ex-LC employee, and I hear it. And I hear it all the time. I know what you're going through. I know how difficult it is. And when people come at me and tell me, hey, well, look at this college, look at Wharton, look at that. And my answer is, look at their tax base. Look at their enrollments. That's what you need to look at. And just like with anything, you know, I don't want to see athletics disappear from Laredo Community College. But I think we need to say, what can we afford to bring back and what can we do? And I know that last time I saw, and I was speaking in terms of what I do. You gotta get that AD, male, female, whatever. And then when I start doing research, well, a lot of these other colleges, you know how they save on that? I'm picking on coach here because he's here. You're the AD and the tennis coach.
You're the everything.
You're the AD, and then the softball coach, she's the softball coach, assistant AD, because when you're in season, she takes over while you're in season, so you can concentrate on your season. And that's why she does it. And then the soccer coach, that's the assistant AD head soccer coach. So while she's in season, and you might still be fixing up that guy, and all of you are fully versed, but you're the lead. And that's how you save money, and all of you know about compliance, and all of you know what to do, and all of you are for LCF. And those are the 2 or 3 sports that we're bringing back, because that's what we're basically able to do. If things get better, I wouldn't say we're gonna totally cancel them out, but we're gonna keep them on, but we're not gonna fill the team this, whether it's whatever sport. We don't have a coach for this sport, so we're not gonna bring it back this year. We're only gonna bring back these 2 sports, these 3 sports, and that's it. The schools that resemble LC have 2 or 3 sports, that's it, that's all they can do. Schools with the $10,000, $15,000 enrollment, and those activity fees, they're very low budget for that reason. And they can afford to bring back, and I have friends, hey, they're calling me, hey, you're good guys to me, bring back basketball, we need to do this, we need to do that, and then it costs.
Yes.
It costs. So we get it. Athletics here at LC and Laredo is near and dear to us. We don't want to see it disappear. So that's what I like to see, where we can save and what we can do is, and then he said it best the other day, Richard did, we need to bring it back slowly, phase 1, come back with 1, 2 sports, maybe 3 at the moment, but certainly we can't afford it. We can't afford it, especially with the enrollment being down 15, 20%.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mr. Rosas?
Well, pretty much Bob said a lot what I was gonna say, but in the last meeting, I remember that I said we need to be as keen as possible, and that's why I mentioned whoever the acting AD was that last meeting, I said those words, and just what Bobby said right now. I'm gonna have to step out right now about 15, 20 minutes. I have a commitment to show up to, but I really enjoy everything that your comments that I'm hearing and stuff like that. But one question I do have, and I should have asked that last meeting, and I was thinking about it. If it wasn't for the pandemic, we would be here right now. Would we be talking about the sports division? If we were not into
Maybe not.
Well, I think it's either.
I think.
I don't know. I don't know if it's either yes or no, because. And I think the enrollment situation, because we're all looking at that budget, like it's commenting, and I agree with her. That's why I said from the very beginning, this is gonna have to be a real phased out, solution to put it together, to put it back.
Just very quickly, I know that we have to move on to the next final one, but as we're deliberating, and like I said last time, we have to look at the big picture, a lot of other things, the board especially, of the college and the sustainability. And, but I need to again point out a couple things very quickly. But back to your point, the pandemic forced us to rethink and how do we move on to the next level. The college inside right here and the new board members and all the board members, we're constantly looking how can we reassess and continue transforming the college. We were actually looking and very deeply into our mission and our programs. What can we do? What do we need? Where we're going? Sports was already discussed even before pandemic. We were already talking about, what should we do? Because we saw that it was a big cost. But anyway, we're not going to go into that. The pandemic forced me to reassess, reprioritize everything, other programs as well. But that's one thing. Number two, in comparison to the other programs, you brought up the point here about where we stand with the other colleges our size. And I need to point out as a college and the leadership here, we are the leanest college. We are classified under this, what you can see here, large college. And a large college, those that are 9,000 and up. And we're classified there. Of all of those colleges in the 50 in the state, we are the leanest. We have the least amount of administrators, deans, vice presidents. That's very important. I know you haven't seen that, but we compare constantly. We are under 700 full-time employees. To give you an idea, FAMU has less students, less, say, buildings, maintenance, and they have more than twice. They have 1,400 employees. We're under 700. To give you an idea, the other colleges that have our size, they're over 1,000 employees. So we're extremely, very proud of how the administration and the board has been able to work together and be able to maintain and sustain this type of operation. And thirdly, final, and again, compared to the other colleges, we are, like we said earlier a week ago, the smallest tax-based college in the entire state. What that means, our tax base is the smallest compared to even our neighbors, compared to South Texas, and all the other ones. They have entire counties. Regardless of how poor or how rich that county, those counties are, those college districts, they have an entire county. We only have the city limits. Despite that, if you look around, look at all these buildings, look at these new programs, look at our rankings, look where we're at, look what we're doing academically. It's incredible. And we want to continue doing that and continue with the quality of instruction that we're doing now. And keep that in mind. And of course, we not increase taxes, nor tuition, and nor we are going to increase our tax base in practice. So please keep that in mind. I just wanted to go out of that one when you're deliberating. Again, thank you. And
The chair recognizes, Catherine again. Yes, hand raised up.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I think the points that our president just made are very salient regarding the finances and the realities that the college faces. And I just wanted to make this comment very briefly. Let me preface it with what I said last time. The athletics program has been a blessing at this college for many years, and all of the people who worked in it have helped achieve this college's successes in many different ways. But as I mentioned at the last meeting, and I just wanted to make this point again, because it is what I feel that I should make, is that the trends in higher education in Texas are all pointing in the same direction. Tuition is where it's at, right? And it's gone up over the years. The tax base, as was just mentioned, is one of the smallest tax bases in the state of Texas, if not the smallest. And we are already lean. And I feel, as Ms. Maris mentioned, we all have a responsibility. Some of us have a fiduciary responsibility, and I see it as my mission to preserve as much as I can the mission of this college, which is to provide academics, to provide instruction, and to make sure that students are able to achieve their collegiate and workforce goals. And I just wanted to say very briefly that we have limitations on what we can offer. And if we don't make the right choices, we're not going to be able to offer those services in the future. In other words, as amazing as the athletics program is, our primary mission at this college is to provide academics and to provide training and workforce. And I don't think that it's going to be easier over the years for us to continue doing that with the realities in terms of how dual enrollment is growing. And that is, of course, lessening the fees that people pay. And that program is already, like I mentioned previously, over 60% of our tuition or our enrollment. And so what I'm saying again is that this committee is going to be tasked at some point to make a difficult decision. And if it doesn't, the longevity of this college is at risk. And there is no question in my mind about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to make a clarification also on that. The reason that we have those $400,000 that we can work with to save one or two programs is because of that 2013 decision. The 2013 decision to bring softball and soccer to be part of the student activity is what actually is keeping us afloat right now. We don't have access to the general operating funds because we've already addressed the budget. But because it was done in 2013, those monies belong to the softball and soccer teams right now because that was what was going on. So if you go to the next screen, the next slide, sir. The next line is, what to consider. Number one, we consider addressing the increase to the student activity fee by $5. That means that if the committee decides to do that and proceed, then we would take it to the board. All discussions would come to a halt until the board considers this increase. It could be this month, next month, the following month, whatever time. Number two, bring to the board the rescinding soccer and softball allocation and change them to the athletic program. That's a consideration. I mean, I'm just talking to the committee right now, and the administration is here, so that might be where we could be able to change and say, this allocated money will always be for the athletic program right now, right? I could be wrong. But since it was already allocated for soccer and softball, then the money is coming for those two only. So right now, as we see the budget, we have only for those two programs, if those are the only two programs that are gonna stay, because that's what we have money for.
Madam Chair, if
Yes,
I may,
Dr. Fred.
just a point of clarification.
Yes, sir.
Back in 2013, when the student activity fee was voted on to be raised, it wasn't just for those two athletic programs. There's a whole slew of other programs that benefit from that fee increase.
Okay,
So we have a new program that was not existed back in 2013, which is our new student orientation, that is funded by that fee. We have our student leadership program that didn't exist back in 2013, which is now part of the repertoire of what we offer to students. We had some of the performances and programs that were put on by the mariachi, all the workshops, farms, all of that, all being funded through this fee for their performances. More importantly, we have the student representative here today, Mr. Using that money, we were able to start the associate student organization. Phi Theta Kappa received money for their travel and participate in the conference. And then, on and on, it was basically set aside for activities that were student related.
but when we look at the budget, $946,000 are allocated for the student life, and the rest of the $400,000 are allocated for softball and soccer. So to distinguish that, to make sure that if we do away with that, is because we have to go back and we have to say, we're no longer gonna fund these two. Actually, we're gonna fund them under another like athletics period. Because it doesn't apply.
The recommendation that when we sending them for the student activity, saying we're going to shift that cost to the institution.
No, when you would rescind just the fact that in 2013, they said soccer and softball and make it athletic program. So that the $400,000 that are being allocated presently would always be for the athletic program. In other words,
whatever that looks like.
Whatever that looks like. And that way it doesn't seem like only softball and soccer, because then when you do that and the board decides on it, whatever decision they make, then you can come back and say, okay, now we have the 400,000. Now we can pick which of the programs are gonna be viable towards the 400,000. If the committee considers, again, the administration needs to also consider this. Consider addressing an increase of $5 per semester credit hour to the activity fee. They would generate, at least from the numbers that we had, $600,000. But that would actually go specifically for the athletic program, right? If they were generated. And there's a contingency that we might not get these 12,000 credit hours anymore. It might be 6,000, it might be 8,000. That's kind of the logistics of it, because you're going to have to do these two things first in order to come back and say, we're gonna be making these changes. Because as it stands right now, we can't do anything with the 400,000. We have to say softball and soccer, that's it, because that's what the program is paying from that funding. Am I correct? Because that's where the money's coming for those two sports, right? If we want to change the program and start from scratch and consider all programs, then we need to take it to the board and say, can you change the allocation of the programs? And make it a broad athletics. So you'll always have that extra money that goes to athletics. You understand? Like, it's not about like taking more from them, and I know that the ASO and Phi Theta Kappa, that's from the other part that's already been allocated, which is the 946,000 from the monies that are coming in. But we're basing ourselves on that 2019-2020 school year. I mean, I could be wrong, but when I look at things like right now, I see that I can only say soccer and softball because that's where the money's coming from. But if I go back to the board and I present to the board and I say, can we say not softball and soccer, but athletics? I would ask that question.
Does that require a board decision?
That's why I'm asking Dr. Solis, because I believe it does, but I could be wrong.
And yes, that is. Agreed.
Yes.
The board made that decision, so it will be up to the board, how they want to do that.
They can be changed or modified, in other words.
Yes.
Or have to go back and decide, okay, those two sports.
But the board needs to approve it, right? They need to say, because they approved the addition of those two sports.
Right, so they'll have to vote again to do away with the funding.
The allocation.
Or to reallocate it to whatever other sport instead of.
Athletics. Just, let's say athletics, you put athletics from the student activity that are coming in. So you have those $400,000 that have been generated for those two sports, they are going to be allocated to the athletics program.
Standing correctly, the bucket is going to be the same size. It's
Yeah.
$400,000 bucket size. What you put in there is what you're going to decide.
Right.
Right now, we're putting soccer and softball there, but it may not be those.
Because we're buying it because of the vote that was made for the board. So that's the reason why I'm saying. So that's why I left this one till the very end, because we really need to make that decision to come back, because we say we have 400,000. We might have 600,000 if that number one is addressed to the board as well. If they say no, then we just come back with 400,000. That's it. Mr. Rosas?
Yes, going back to the 400,000 that's in the bucket for soccer and softball. Maybe back then when that decision was made was obviously there were two new sports. They want to inject money into those two sports. But I do agree, I believe when we talk athletics, it's straight down the line. It shouldn't be, to me, just my opinion. Everybody's in the same bucket.
Right.
You know, at the end of the day, we're looking at budgets. So,
Exactly. So, and since we don't have the general budget fund to get the money from, then we would say that it's for the athletic program. And then we can say, okay, what are we going to decide line by line item, looking at the different items. So with that proposal, we need to decide, do we do 1 and 2? And come back maybe when the next board meeting, I think we still have time to put it in the board meeting. We can come back and it would probably have to be the first week of May. I know I said 4 meetings.
There are 3 participants raising their hands.
Okay. Mr. Manzicani, the chair recognizes Mr. Manzicani.
Ms. Ramos, just because we have had a discussion here on, going with 2 programs or in a phase, I just wanted to say perhaps at the next meeting, since some people have already left, maybe, and it's just my opinion, to see or to survey the committee in the future to see where it stands with your original 4 proposals. I believe on slide 2, you had 4 proposals, one of which was to remove, suspend, cancel indefinitely, the second one, and so forth. Perhaps it would be, I think, prudent to see where the committee stands on those so that we know which direction the committee wants to head towards. It's just my recommendation or opinion.
We can do a survey, online survey, and survey everybody in case some people don't want to talk about it and let everybody else. Mr. Dr. Solis.
Madam Chair, just an observation. So, going back to that list of 1 and 2, that is suggesting that then the general operating budget will not be impacted by that decision at all.
No, that, we're not even talking about the general operating. We've left it alone already. We just said we're working with the student activity. And that's why I go back to what Dr. Mr. Manzanani said about utilizing the monies for academics and so forth. Yes, it is, but right here, right now, in our bucket, like Mr. Rosa said, we have 400,000 that we've used in the past. Let me recognize Mr. Daniel Perez.
Yes, hi. I have 3 questions. One, if there was a pandemic going on, are there still student activities being done last semester, or there's last 2 semesters?
Yes, sir. There, I can answer that on behalf of Ms. Ramos if she doesn't mind. That's an area that I oversee as part of my division, and yes, sir, we do have activities going on. May I answer, Ms. Ramos?
Yes,
Okay, we have virtual activities going on. Okay, we do have events that are virtual going on for students. In fact, last week we had a speaker and he was from the Ninja Warriors, and so he did speak virtually to our students. Next week, I believe I saw a flyer, we're having another speaker, so we do have events. We also have part of student activities that now we encompass the trading station, that aspect of the trading station reports, or the whole trading station reports to student activities. So we have hired student workers to man the trading station. And in case you don't know what the trading station is, it is where students right now, and regardless of pandemic or not, we provide them right now with food, with clothing, and so on. Although all those things are donations, the manpower is not. And so we schedule appointments and things like that. Okay, so the activities continue and they haven't stopped, they're just done differently.
Okay, and how many students participate in the virtual meetings or services?
It varies. Okay, we can get anywhere between 100 to maybe 200 students. Okay, because it depends on the topic we're providing them, and it also depends on the hours that we are doing it. So it's not always going to be a constant number. We do surveys for our students to ask them what is a good time. And so depending on the surveys that we do constantly throughout the semester, we try to adjust those activities so that way we can have full participation, or as much participation as possible.
Okay, thank you. Now, my next question is for Coach Don Juan.
Go ahead.
Coach, right now we don't have those 2 coaches. Let's just say hypothetically, if we were to go with opening all the programs, how long would it take to hire those 2 coaches and the assistants?
That would be an HR.
Yes, yeah, in HR and administration. Administration would have to look at the hiring of those 2 coaches. At the present time, Mr. Perez, those 2, because there are no coaches in those 2 programs, then there will be the first ones that would not come back.
Okay. And finally, my last question is, can we move forward? Well, hopefully we can move forward, at least talking about those 4 sports right now, because I don't think we're going to bring back the other 2 sports that don't have coaches. So maybe that could help us make a better decision, because I know you all keep mentioning, like baseball and volleyball, and hey, I used to go see the sports when I was there, and I know people that participate, but I'm just saying that it doesn't help us if we kept talking about it all the time, that that it kind of not clouds our judgment, but it doesn't really help the conversation. So maybe we should just be talking about the 4 sports that are available right now.
It would be 3, soccer, softball, and tennis.
Yes. Yeah, well, I counted tennis twice because of the men and women's program. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The chair recognizes Ms. Peña.
Yes, Ms. Ramos, I think Dr. Fred might have addressed the comment that I was gonna make, but because I can sometimes we can hear clearly and sometimes we can't, but I just wanted to stress the fact that when the board did approve the student activity fee, there wasn't just it was not just approved for soccer and softball. Okay, there were other components added to that dealt with other areas of activities throughout our college. And so some of the things, and again, I'm just gonna throw them out there, and maybe Dr. Friend mentioned them, but our student orientation, our leadership program, our ASO, we have for our gallery, art gallery, for our cheer team, for our performing arts. We also have for PTK, ambassadors. I think that's pretty much all of them. I might have missed a few, but I just want to stress the fact that it wasn't just specifically for soccer and softball.
And I think that what we were, the message that I was trying to convey was the fact that the board voted for softball and soccer. Those programs to be sponsored by the funding source of that student activity fee. So because they voted for those 2, then that is what we have right now. We're not touching the general operating fund. We're working what we are getting as the generated revenue from the student activity fee. And if we were to decide to bring it to the board, we have to ask the board to change it to consider moving it from the allocation of softball and soccer to the athletic program.
Okay.
Still within student life. Many people, I know that, we don't think about those things, but like the training station is food insecurities for our students. Student life is student life. It's student activity. Mm-hmm. So if students were to ask, what am I paying with my student activity fee? ASO, which is the Associated Student Organization, also sports, all of the different academies that we have, the Leadership Academy, the Orientation Academy, all of those things encompasses what student activity fee does.
Correct.
Also includes salaries. I mean,
yes.
Every line item, every program has that. So that's what we have to look at.
Yeah, okay. I guess I got confused and I thought that if the way number 2 was reading and then what I heard, and I guess maybe I need clarification just to make sure I didn't misunderstand.
The entire activity fee, it would just be what has already been allocated or what has been taken for softball and soccer to say athletic program.
Okay, yeah. So, but we won't forget about the other ones that were added when that voting or that decision took place, right?
Sure. It's her.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was doing that.
Yeah. Well, because you see, you also, another thing to add to the fact that for years, because I remember I did a bit of research back then when, when they were contemplating on the fee, the student activity fee, believe it or not, was $1. And it was $1 for like over 25 years. And so it slowly started, increasing, right? But it had not been increased for a lot of years. And I want to say I went back and it was almost 25 years, or I stopped at 25 because I couldn't find no more research. And so it was, and so, obviously with time, more things, start getting a little bit more expensive.
Because current trends change also as well.
Yeah.
The needs of the students, and you also have to address the student itself and to provide activities for them. I think ASO is a good organization that gets the kids to be able to be prepared for future programs that they want to participate. And many of our students have gone on to do other things, and Mr. Galavis will do the same. He will move on because he participated in this particular program and gave him he's empowered now, understanding and participating in this committee. He's gonna get out there and say, well, I'm never, I'm gonna go to the university. So, but I would like to close this committee meeting with letting you all know, Mr. Cruz, I'm going to let you go ahead. All right,
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. I know we're about to close. Shifting things over, I know, I think I wasn't a part of that committee in 2013 to bring soccer and softball in the way that was funded.
Yeah.
But I think I could be wrong. When that decision was made, it's kind of, and I'm equating it to what we do, and we try to get it in with the least amount of people. So, you know, at the time, somebody said, hey, let's shift everything to student activities. Right? And then somebody said, that's gonna cost way too much, like, let's only do these sports. So that's why you have these two different sources of funds, right? So you have student activities, student-wide, athletics, that's what that is.
Yeah.
So am I correct in saying that if let's say we keep tennis, let's slide tennis over into activities, then a slice of that pie is going to go, now you've got to dig up that pie, it's an activity, and now accommodate another sport. Correct?
Right.
Ms. Peña, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So yeah, as long as we don't, that might be the feasible solution, the thing to do. As long as we don't touch PTK.
Well, it's not just PTK I'm worried about. I'm worried about all the other stuff. That's why I guess I panicked, and maybe I didn't hear correctly, and I thought, okay, so if they approved, if whatever was approved 2013 is just gonna get shifted over to whatever sports, I'm like, wait, time out, because that wasn't it. And then now, and I hate to say it, but I have to say it because, you know, I worked that budget. Well, now we're gonna have a problem with student life and student activities. Because then they're not going to have enough money to function and do all the things that we're doing. Because you got to remember,
it would be that stays solid. That stays solid in whatever you have.
Okay.
Remaining monies from the generated revenue that can currently be used for these programs, whatever programs we decide on. So then
I am understanding correctly. Then whatever was approved, if that, so the things that what is being discussed is the fact that the whole lump sum would be shifted over to those sports.
No.
Okay.
Be shifted to sports would be whatever's being whatever you're getting from the student activity. Dr. Craig, please.
Well, yeah, but the student activity fee, that's what I'm trying to say, doesn't just go straight to softball and soccer. And that's what maybe I'm misunderstanding, because I know sometimes I can hear everything, sometimes I don't. And so maybe I'm just panicking because I can't hear.
So, when we prepare the budget for soccer and softball.
Okay.
For soccer and softball.
Mm-hmm. No, I just hear soccer and softball, but it's mumbling. So.
Programs, right? You said that money aside for those two athletic programs, soccer and softball. Right? You said it aside. That's for them.
I think I'm okay. Yeah, I just hear soccer and softball. I can't hear everything else. I'm sorry. But that's okay. I guess it's okay. I guess I just wanna make sure that we all understand, and I feel that I have to speak up on that it's others.
Application. It's still a $400,000 set aside for those two programs. The only difference is you're not calling 200,000 soccer, 200,000 softball. You're gonna call it 400,000 athletic program.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah. Okay.
Pick up the phone.
Yes. Okay.
But we're saying,
Okay. Let me mute it over here.
I'm gonna cancel the mic.
Okay.
What we're saying is, you have a budget,
Uh-huh.
student activity.
Mm-hmm.
You've received 1.3, correct?
Yeah, whatever,
And you
yeah.
allocate whatever amount that you get.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay? You set aside let me go back.
Every year.
You set aside a certain amount
Correct.
for soccer
Uh-huh.
and for softball.
Correct.
How much do you get? How much do you allocate?
What they
400 and
get,
something.
it's something like that, yes.
That's all we're working with.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
We're
I
not
get it.
touching
I get
the
it.
student life budget.
Okay.
We're not doing anything with that. We're just touching what's allocated for softball and soccer.
And soccer, okay. Now just, okay, and so I get you now. So now my other, I think you can hear me. So my other just point that I need to make sure I clarify, remember that this budget is based on, obviously, paying customers, right? Paying students. So let's not forget that, because although we're saying 400, it might not necessarily be 400 next year.
Exactly.
And so we need to then make those adjustments.
Exactly. And that is why we are saying, based on the last year's projection of
Okay.
we have, because if this program only existed with softball and soccer, you were still gonna allocate those monies for softball and soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And general operating fund was gonna do something else to come up with the money. But right now, the only thing we're talking about is where the monies that are being allocated for softball and soccer from the student activity fee.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, we cannot say that, like this coming year, the 2022, student life will raise their budget because they're not allocating anything to softball and soccer. That's what I'm saying. We need to go back to the board and tell the board, instead of allocating it for those two programs, can we allocate it to the athletic program?
Mm-hmm.
2019, 2020 figures.
Mm-hmm.
Allocated over $500,000 because you had to borrow money from the general operating fund.
Mm-hmm.
But you come down and you say only 400,000, you're being lean on it. And you're saying it could fluctuate, it could go up, it could go down. But always with the intention that those monies are going to be allocated for those programs. You're already doing that right now.
Correct.
Touching student life itself, student life is encompassing several programs within student life. This is athletic programs from the student activity fee.
Mm-hmm.
We're already doing that before. So we cannot go back and say student life is going to take over the entire student activity fee of 1.3 million, because that means that you have set aside those sports programs when in 2013, that money was also being used for those two programs. That's what we're saying.
Okay.
Touching student life, we're not even mentioning cutting anywhere in student life, because your budget was 946,000 for 2019, 2020. That's what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be a little bit higher, but that's what we had talked about, Mr. Vela. Can you?
Just to address, Raquel's, concerns, is although we're saying that we're not touching student life, like Raquel mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
get impacted if we have lower enrollment. the revenue doesn't come in. So
Right.
at some point during the budget process, she's gonna have to make adjustments to the China, not just the place, but also to her budget. And again, it's not just the impact of enrollment, but it's also the impact of increased costs. Again, there are some costs that go up. So even though we may have, let's say, flat enrollment, but if the cost of the programs go up, we're gonna have to make adjustments, whether it may be to the fee or to the budget itself.
Yes, exactly. Are we okay, Ms. Peña?
Yes, yes, I got it. I think it was the fact that we couldn't hear everything, and then the things that I was picking up was probably the words that were making me think, so I panicked. And I don't need no more gray hair, Ms. Ramos.
No, you don't. The chair recognizes Mr. Carroll.
Thank you.
Well, those things I'm looking at right here, and then we're working with $400,000. We're looking at software and softball alone. We're at $44,000. So we're already directionally down that. I'd like to see if we can get a breakdown on how we can get per sport and how we can get within those numbers. Like, so what's gonna make sense for us?
Exactly.
Within these numbers. If I look at some of the line items over here as well, for example, I can tell you right off the bat, contract services is something that we need for sports complex, right? So we need professional service complex. I can talk about softball right now, so we're having to consider softball field. We're getting, we have to proceed, I'm not gonna tell that. But we need to security there, we need to increase the dugout itself, the enclosure itself, so that's what we need to increase. The field itself needs to be maintained by our professional services. So right now, we're not expensing that out. We actually have one sponsor that's doing that themselves. So again, if that's something that we want to continue to do, to take some cost, or we want to add it, we want to add that. Those are going to be also important conversations.
Yes. And definitely in order to close up the meeting, because I know I didn't want it to go much longer than an hour and a half or much longer than an hour. But I think that the first two items, I would like to send to you through survey. Have you answered the survey by, when is the last day to submit an item to the agenda? Was it it? Okay. Okay, so we'll talk about it without the survey right now. So, if there is a change in the meetings, I would still like to continue the meeting, or we could also meet next week and just work with a 400,000 and work on trying to make them lean and be prepared for whatever happens when we do meet as a board for 1 and 2. Because if the board votes for 1 and says, you know what, we're going to increase it by $5, which honestly, it really has to be a discussion with the board. It has to be something that administration and the board need to discuss.
May I say something here, Mr. Ramos?
Yes.
Real quick about this, does it have to be a $5 fee, or is that what you're projecting to sustain?
We just said $5 because we, figured that it was 12,000 credit hours. So we said $600,000 it would generate.
The last thing I'll say is this, and I need to say it because if not, I'll forget it. We gotta go. As a student, as a college student, you know, when I came to Elsa, I transferred out to UTSA. And when I take my daughter to UTSA, we're gonna go on campus with pretty soon. She just graduated. The first thing I tell her when I see UTSA is that my fees pay for all of this. And I'm joking. I was long ago. But a college student right now, a kid, if you tell him, hey, I'm gonna give you a student activity increase by $5, the first question I'm gonna say, okay, what's in it for me?
Right.
Is it solely to sustain athletics? I'm not in favor of that. But if you tell that kid, this is $5 for activity fee for intramurals, for use of the weight room, for use of open gym. You know, back when I was in school, and I'm dating myself here, I was at OC from 88 to 90. You know, we had those services. We had intramural leagues. We had basketball intramurals, we had flag football intramurals, we had softball intramurals. We had these activities. I could go to the gym, give my ID, check out a ball, and it was open gym. And those are my services. Now, I'm happy to pay that fee if I can use them, and they were offered to me. And if I don't, well, then I pay the fee, I'm not using it, but I have access to it. And I don't know if we have that in place.
That's a good point to make.
It's very hard to swallow a $5 fee just for athletics if the non-dual student is not getting anything out of it.
Right.
But if the non-dual student gets access to the facilities, to the weight room, to the PE, and that person whoever's in charge of, I don't even know if we have a person in charge of that, the PE department, and the PE department used to run that, and restriction fees was Dr. And so, the fee might, it doesn't have to be $5. It could be a little less, but the non-dual student and the taxpayer wants to see whether we can get out of that. Is it just to sustain athletics? And I hate to say that because
And that's why I put in there, proceeding with the amount, esports and or intramurals. So take into consideration those, because the facilities are still gonna have to be addressed. What are we doing with the facilities that the programs are not gonna exist? For example, volleyball, baseball, those things. And we are in the works right now to, lease out, one of our areas.
And so,
That might be a consideration.
and so the other question I had, we talked about the sports complex. The sports complex is on an island on its own, from what I see when it comes to funding and maintenance and, like the baseball and softball, those things need to be maintained year round. If you're talking, they need to be on a turf program, they need to be fertilized, they need to be, the tennis courts need to be resurfaced all the time. Soccer field gets a lot of wear and tear. That's what you're talking about, the sports complex.
Right. And also having the officials and, who runs it when they have.
Or contractor services. Correct. But my last question is, those should not be a part, those should not be on an island by itself and figure out how to fund that. Those are on campus and those are part of our facilities.
Yeah.
And so it's like an HVAC here. That's how the tennis court and go ahead, sorry.
And the line item that you see there on the sports complex is not to maintain it, the personnel.
It's the personnel.
Yes, that monitors the complex and provides the services. The maintenance is part of our grant operations.
Perfect.
And again, that is being taken care of because the facilities are
Yeah,
there.
it's our facility.
Yeah, it's our facility.
Thank you, sir, for clearing that up.
Thank you. So we're going to adjourn the meeting with these points in mind. We will be sending out a survey to all of you and those of you on Zoom. Please make sure that you answer the survey so that we can take into account what are the wishes of the committee. And also we will take into consideration in speaking to administration, if we do 1 and 2, and also bring to mind that I think it would be feasible to have the meeting next week to start working at some of the, line items. If we think about the $400,000, what can we do with it? And if we stick to that point right now, we can certainly begin a fresh start to at least focus on what we have right now in front of us. Then if we were to be blessed with the board approving an increase to the activity fee, then maybe that would say the following year, we're gonna add another sport or whatever the committee decides. But know this, that whatever the committee decides, we need to come back to take it to the board to say, this is all the committee can do. Okay, and from here, it's for the next person, which is administration, and the board ultimately has to make the decision how to move forward. Because we can toil with the $400,000, but then we need to make sure that we bring that to the board and that the board approves it. That's the route we want to go to. Because the board can also say, you know what? Scrap everything up including the allocation of those monies from the student activity fee and to start doing something else. Okay, so I wanted to keep you with that in mind. I know we provided with a lot of information. I really enjoy the dialogue that we have with each other because we know what we are talking about and we are having those questions and that dialogue with each other. So I do appreciate that. So with that in mind, I make a motion to adjourn. Yes, go, Mr.
Yeah, just really quick, I've been quiet, just listening to everybody, kind of where everybody wants to go. And I think it's good. And, can we just add one thing on this survey? So then that way we could probably have it by the next meeting. And can we add on the survey what sports we would want to see come back? And maybe have them as 1, 2, 3 on what they think, what sports are more feasible or what sports they would like. Now with that, me personally, going back to this slide that you had at the very beginning, which is, you know, I really do like the fact of having over 70% locally kids. You know, I think that would be great, you know, because that would give more opportunities for our kids that are locally to probably participate within these sports. So with that, I was gonna ask you one question, coach or coaches. In your opinion, what sports are more likely to be successful within our community that you've seen? You know what, the ISDs produce very good athletes in X sports. What would be your opinion? And just your expertise, because I know you've been in United for years, so I don't know if Coach Barrera's online and she can probably answer if I can. But what's your opinion on that?
Not to dance around it?
Yeah, just
Softball, soccer.
softball, soccer. Those are the sports that you feel that the ISDs could produce.
If we offer cross country, I would say cross country. But now if you start to talk about volleyball, basketball, and we don't have basketball, but you know, the demographically, you know, in Laredo, I'll just throw out, not to talk about it too much. Let's say if we offer basketball, and you told me, hey, 70% of your roster has to be from Laredo. I would say, well, you know what, Mr. Rangel, we're gonna have a bunch of guards. We can't do it. You know, I have to go out and get, and demographically, we have to do that. You ask me, to compete, not just be successful, but to compete. Our soccer teams do very well. Not just Laredo, but Laredo, Webb County, South Texas.
Yes.
Our soccer teams do well. Our softball teams do well. Yeah, you can go out and get, you know, you can get that. We have that one picture that is in Corpus, one picture in San Antonio. Like, there's your 30%. We can go get her, we can go get somebody else, and then the rest of the team. If the board says, hey, we got to field it from locally, and so be it. But
you're right. It's about being successful in the program as well, because I don't foresee football trying to get 70% from here.
Absolutely.
I mean, we won't be able to compete with anybody.
Yeah.
So I think that's the reason why I'm asking you that.
Tennis, we do have players here locally, but I would probably, you know, we have a very good, reputable, competitive tennis program here. It is renowned. So,
yeah.
So I wouldn't want to hurt that tennis program as well. I'd probably give them, hey, you know, we'd like to see you out of the 9, 8. You know, let's try and get some local players.
Yeah. So if we could probably get that chair added to the survey. So then that way when Ms. Ramos gets the paperwork, because I know maybe some of us don't want to say soccer, maybe some of us, but on the survey, you know, that way Ms. Ramos could come back and say, this is what, you know, the committee kind of decided to say, this is the number 1 sport, this is the number 2 sport, this is the number 3 sport. And I think, again, the reason why I bring this up is because I would really want to see a lot of local kids, because a lot of them can't afford to leave out of town. So maybe a lot of them, if we could probably give them something here within our community. It's not just helping Laredo College, but it's also helping our community, our kids, and I think it'll be a really good thing. So we could probably have that. I think it would be great. That's it. And thank you.
Thank you. And with that in mind, I think those, I'm sorry, somebody, Coach, the chair recognizes Coach Juan.
You know, to recruit athletes from Laredo, that is not an issue. The thing is that at least during this time that I've been here, I have never been told, don't go and recruit international. You have to recruit here. So if the coaches were told, hey, you have to recruit from here, well, then we recruit from here. That's never, I just want to make that clear. That the direction that the school wants to go, that's the direction we go. My son's a junior in high school at United. So is he gonna play for Laredo? Well, I don't know. It depends if we're here still or not. So, I mean, and if he comes, guess what? There's other.
He should play for 2 years, for sure.
So, just wanted to say that.
Appreciate it, thank you. And so those are some of the things that we need to consider. Again, I thank you for staying the course, because it is long. I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. At this time, I want to say we are going to meet, okay? So have a good evening, and this meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.